Howdy, y'all. Caleb here. I've got a good one for you today. If you are a Thunderquake aficionado or a Bastiladon enjoyer, you're gonna like this one. I played in a just a one-day tournament last weekend with the Dallas Defenders here at my local club, and I came in third place. Uh, don't let that fool you. It was a pretty small one this month. There was only 8 of us that play in there, but I went 2-1 with a pretty goofy list. Let's take a look at this, and I think you'll enjoy it. Here's my Thunderquake Starhost list. It is a 2-drop 1990. I'm playing with 2 Saurus Oldbloods on Carnosaur. One has Incandescent Rectrices and Beastmaster, so that Carnosaur can heal in each hero phase, and then Beastmaster gives all my monsters +2 to move, which is good. In the first regiment, I've got 3, count them, 3 Bastiladons with Ark of Sotek. In the second regiment, I have 3 Bastiladons with Solar Engine. A perfectly balanced list if I've ever seen one. So 6 Bastiladons, 2 Carnosaurs, just pure fun here in this list. And that's kind of what I'm going for. Now, I think it can jump out and kind of take some people by surprise just because that's a lot of 2-up save monsters. I can put out quite a bit of chip damage, not a whole lot of concentrated damage, but I feel like when you get 3 of these Bastiladons with solar engines, all of a sudden you can do a little bit of damage. Now, they're not very good on their own. Combine them all together, spike a couple rolls, and sometimes you can do some damage. So that's kind of what I'm going for. Clog up the middle with the Ark of Sotek, shoot them with the Bastiladons with solar engines, and then maybe flank them with the Carnosaurs, and that's kind of the play. So 8 monsters, 2 drop, real clean, no wizards, just pure smooth brain 3 War Scroll list. So I had a blast with it, and it did okay. First game where we are playing shifting objectives, and I like this one for this list because 3 objectives, I can just get on those real fast. I don't necessarily like that my territory is pretty shallow, because in this list with these 2-up save monsters, I really want to take the asterism that gives me -1 to rend in my territory. That just makes everything a whole lot tougher. In this one, I'm going for the +2 to move asterism because I got to get to those objectives. So, one thing to note, I did not bring my Realm Shaper because it would pretty much do nothing in this list. So if you don't see my Realm Shaper in any of these pictures, that's why. So I like this battle plan. As long as I don't face an army that has a whole lot of melee damage that can just punch me off these objectives. Unfortunately, I'm playing Anthony Richardson as his Slaves to Darkness. He's got a 1-drop Slaves list with Be'lakor, Reinforced Chosen, Reinforced Vanguard, a unit of Chaos Knights, and a Chaos Lord. So a good list. I've actually played him before, and I won it last time. I got lucky on a nice charge with a Carnosaur into his Knights, kind of took his flank, and then I got my Kroxigor into his Chosen at one point and killed them, and we had a good fight, and I ended up squeaking that one by a couple points. So, unfortunately, I don't really have the concentrated melee damage I'm going to need to take out those Chosen or the Vanguard, so it's going to be a hard fight. Here's our deployment, and he does make me go first. You can see I've kind of lined up my Carnosaur over here to run, or not run in charge. I don't have any run in charge in this list, but head over to those Chaos Knights. He put them pretty far back. I think it was going to be like a 9-inch charge for me there. I've got +2 to move from the Asterism. I've got +2 to move from my Carnosaur Beastmaster. So he is going 14, but it's still a pretty long distance because they're clear across that way. You can see my deployment zone. I'm pretty much as far to the right as I can be in my deployment zone. So that's the plan. Otherwise, I push up onto the objectives. We're gonna fight it out in the middle and see what happens. That's what's gonna happen here. I don't have the speed to sit back and dance around it. He's fast enough; he can hit me wherever he wants to. So my Carnosaur fails the charge over here. Unfortunately, I really wanted to pin those Knights back there. Maybe kill off a few of them, but make sure that they don't charge so they can't get the extra damage. So I failed those charges. So at this point, my Carnosaur is kind of sitting out here by himself. I've got 2 Bastiladons on the objective. I think I got a picture of into my turn. This terrain has really kind of hampered me because I'm only able to get so much right there in the middle. I would have liked to get a whole bunch of monsters on those objectives and just had that fight. But that's all we can get there. I did a little bit of shooting, but it was pretty poor, to be honest. Like, they didn't do very well, and I don't even think... I think I just damaged one Varanguard, didn't even kill one, and he rallied all that health back and got them healed up. So that was pretty sad shooting in the first turn. So on his turn, he brings these down, and let me see what kind of pictures I've got here. I've got a couple pictures that we'll look at. We'll take a look at those here in a second. He brings his Varanguard down here to the Carnosaur, and his Knights here to the Carnosaur as well, just to absolutely destroy that Carnosaur. But in doing so, he's able to tag this Bastiladon here, and with the Varanguard, he actually gets a double fight. And so he destroys the Carnosaur with the Knights. He destroys this Bastiladon with the Varanguard, and then is able to pile in and grab that Bastiladon. So in his turn, he killed off 2 Bastiladons and a Carnosaur. Oh, it is not looking good. That was a scary first turn there. Luckily, he did not make the charge with the Chosen on my Bastiladon over here. I made a good redeploy. And but I'm feeling hurt. I needed that shooting versus him, because without that shooting, I'm just not gonna be able to take him in melee. I didn't feel like. So that was a very strong first turn from him. If he had gotten the double turn, it would have just been game over, absolutely. I mean, already I don't feel great right here. But I got the priority into 2, and I'm able to keep the game going and make it competitive. So I am able to push some stuff over here. He Dark Masters my Carnosaur, so my Carnosaur can't get into combat with the Varanguard. But I'm able to hold these 2 objectives for a little while, using my Bastiladons and charging them in. And over the course of like my turn and his turn, I'm able to actually take out the Varanguard. And I think I eventually took out the Knights as well. It took a long time. I lost models. But I was able to win those fights. Unfortunately, I just wasn't able to score battle tactics for a couple turns. There were some I was able to get, but I think I missed one early on, and that put me on the back foot there. A weird fight we had here was these Chosen came this way to deal with the Carnosaur, and my Bastiladon headed up to Be'lakor, and that Bastiladon actually won that fight. It was close. But the Bastiladon eventually took out Be'lakor, did enough mortal wounds through the Rampage, through the snakes, that we were able to wear down Be'lakor. I think we did some shooting from this Bastiladon over there too, and we were able to get a battle tactic, I think, to kill Be'lakor, slay the Tyrant later on in the game. So ended up making it a bit more of a competition than I thought I would. I did end up losing this game, but here's how it ended. I had 1 Bastiladon left over on this objective, and he had like 3 or 4 Chosen over here on this objective. That was it. We pretty much annihilated each other. Unfortunately, I don't think I had a battle tactic I could score that last one, and he held this objective in this one. One of the problems was the primary stayed over here on this left side for most of the game until I was able to swing my Bastiladon over there and get it, and then it popped over to here. So that hurt me a little bit on the victory points, but I think he had the game anyway. He ended up winning it by maybe 10 points or so, and a great game. And I was happy with how it ended. Slaves is a tough matchup, I think, for our beasts, just because they can do so much damage. So I was happy with that. It was a loss, but it wasn't too bad. It was still a fun game, and it was much closer than I thought it was going to be. Game 2, we're playing Feral Foray. Lots of objectives here. This is the one I wanted to play that 1-drop slaves on. You know, if there are this many objectives, and I feel like I could dance around. I have more units. I can put pressure on that way, but unfortunately, no. This one's playing Feral Foray, and I'm matched up against Joseph and his Sons of Behemoth. In his list, he has King Broad, a Gatebreaker, with monstrously tough and glowy lanterns, so he can cast Kronspine Incarnate, which I don't have a wizard, so he's gonna have free shots at casting Kronspine the whole game. In his second regiment, he has Kragnos. No, that's not what I wanted to see. Kragnos, because Kragnos, when he charges a monster, he rolls 2 dice and he multiplies them, and that's how many mortal wounds he can do. So, Kragnos is like a Bastiladon killer. So in game 1, I faced heavy mortal wounds. Don't care about my 2-up save. In this game, it looks like I'm going to face a monster killer, Kragnos, that can do massive mortal wounds. So already, I'm not feeling great about that. Gatebreaker has an ability that on a 4-up, he can just do 4d6 mortal wounds. So many mortal wounds. So my 2-up save isn't going to be all that useful. Here's our deployment. Sorry, this picture was kind of small here. I lined up. I think he won the drop, so he made me go first. And I had lined up for take the flanks with these 2 units. And that's what was my turn 1 strategy, I believe. And I had lined up to where these 2 could put pressure on Kragnos. If I had known, I can't remember if I was going to put my other one here, but I was worried he was just going to bomb Kragnos straight at me and like take the priority. And so I put this one over this side just to hold that objective for me. So ended up being okay. So on my turn, I get these 2 guys to shoot into shooting range for Kragnos, and they went off. This, all that bad shooting they had against slaves, they made up for here in this game. I think I did, it may have been like 16 damage to Kragnos. What? I don't even know how that's possible. So I did a ton of damage to Kragnos. He didn't make any saves. He didn't make any ward saves. Just some bad rolling there for Kragnos. So Kragnos was left on like 2 or 3 wounds. That was it. I got my battle tactic. I didn't make the charge here. I actually tried to get this guy in to make the charge on that baby Gargant. I was hoping that if he could be a bit of a distraction, maybe Kragnos would charge him, and that would leave me free to shoot him another turn. But I did way more damage than I thought to Kragnos, so that was pretty awesome. On his turn, he basically sends everything at me. So I've pushed up, not a lot, but just enough to get to where he can't get onto my objectives. And he sends King Broad here, the Gatebreaker here, and his small Mega Gargants over this side. This baby attacks the Carnosaur, and then Kragnos comes down this way to attack the Bastiladon that was shooting him. And I did covering fire because thinking maybe I could take off a few wounds. Oh, he rallied Kragnos and healed 1 wound. Just wasn't his day for Kragnos. But Kragnos makes the charge, and he rolls a 4 and a 2, so he only does 8 damage to my Bastiladon. So my Bastiladon survives. And he is within range of my Bastiladon's 9-inch monstrous rampage. So when I moved everything up, I made sure his 9-inch rampage is gonna cover the Bastiladon. And it does, and that pops off and kills Kragnos. So Kragnos died without ever really fighting, and that was pretty big. I felt like that was a win right there. I felt like that snowball was going in my direction at that point. The baby Gargant kind of whiffed on the Carnosaur, and the Carnosaur took him out, surprisingly. And then it was just kind of a fight over here. These babies ended up taking out this Snake's Bastiladon. And this Gatebreaker got in with the Bastiladon. But on this map, I'm -1 rend. I was all out defense and 2-up save. So he elected this combat and the next one to roll for that 4-up to do mortal wounds, and he failed both of them. So that kept that Bastiladon alive. And going into the next turn, I don't recall who got the next turn, but It's a fight between Kragnos and these Bastiladons. And crazily enough, these Bastiladons were just able to hold on, make their saves. With all my save stacking that I had, I was able to mitigate the damage. Now, when they get through, they hurt because he has like 5 damage attacks. But he wasn't able to kill off both Bastiladons. I'm able to do a lot of shooting in my turn, and then I charge my Carnosaur in and was able to finish off Broad. And I think eventually I was able to shoot off these two babies, and all he had left was the Gatebreaker. Oh, you can kind of see we're mixing it up there. Oh, he did suplex my Carnosaur over to the backside of himself and got Kronspine in combat with that Carnosaur. That was pretty sweet. And I think he ended up putting all of Broad's attacks and Kronspine's attacks into the Carnosaur, and was able to kill him off there. You can see, though, I'm pushing up on this side in. And at this point, I've got most of the objectives. So I'm able to push this Carnosaur and take that objective, push over here, take that one, and eventually I'll gain this one. He has his last Gatebreaker here, which obviously owns this objective, but I just keep retreating this Bastiladon back to this back corner to where he's got to make a choice. Does he come after that Bastiladon to kill it, or try to play the rest of the board with that Bastiladon? And at this point, I'm just spreading everything out that I can. I eventually take down Broad, just enough mortal wounds and shooting. And this is basically how we end up the game. You can tell I've spread out all my monsters. He's got his Gatebreaker left, and Kronspine got cast out again. And he's just not able to hold enough objectives at this point. And so the game went to me. I got that win, and just used the pure number of models I had to just keep the board safe for myself. I think really that turn one where I did a massive amount of damage on the Kronspine was awesome, and that probably shifted the game heavily in my favor. Probably wouldn't happen again. He had some bad rolls there on his Kragnos saves, but you know what? I'll take it. Game 3, we're playing Focal Points, and this was not too bad. I like this one with my monsters because I can actually keep a lot of monsters in my territory here and still push and keep the -1 rend in my favor. So my asterism works pretty good here. And then as the game progresses, I can usually send something onto his home objective and take it with a monster. Especially with a Carnosaur, if I can charge in, reduce his control with terror, I can usually grab a home objective that way. So I like this one with the monster list. I'm playing against Sebastian and a Seraphon list. All right. So we didn't have to explain our list to each other. We knew what each other's list did. He's got a Sunclaw Starhost. First off, he's got Slon Starmaster with 2 units of Hunters of Huanche with Starstone Bolas, which aren't as big of a deal against my army because I really don't care about charging. I just need to go get on the objectives. So, but I think this game he mostly just used those to score battle tactics. He wasn't really worried about trying to debuff me with them. He's got a Skink Star Priest, which he used that one to buff up the Aggradons here. So I think he was using the Venom Staff on the Aggradons. And he's got a Bastiladon with Ark of Sotek, but he's not in Thunder Lizard, so I've got the extra wounds on him. He's got a Scar Veteran on Aggradon with Beastmaster, Incandescent Rectrices, and then 12 Aggradons and some Saurus Guard. So, an interesting list here. He's got Lore of Primal Jungles, which he used to give the Aggradons extra buffs. So, he's looking at really just kind of buffing up those Aggradons pretty high. They'll be pretty nasty in this list. At one point, he did have, the auto wounds from Star Priest and then extra rend from the Slon. They have anti-monster, so they're going into my monsters. They're going to be rend 3 on the charge there, and then auto wounding. So not too shabby. And he did the asterism for exploding hits on the mounts, and so he's really looking to maximize the damage here. I think probably if he were to go back, maybe he would take the different spell lore, because I really think run and charge would have helped him here in the first turn. So let's take a look at deployment here. Here's deployment, and you can see he's got all 12 Aggradons here right there on the front line. He's not worried about me. I can't get to him turn 1. I did win the drop priority. Yeah, we're both 2 drop. So I do make him go first. You can see his Bastiladon is headed this way, and then he's got his Aggradon or his Slon by the temple. I made sure I stayed 3 away from everything I could, except for this terrain piece. I put a Carnosaur on it. He'll just have to take the mortal wounds. Sorry, bub. And I think he did. He hit him a couple times for mortal wounds. So on his turn, he pushed forward, and he did seize the center with the Aggradons and the Aggradon hero. I think if he had run in charge and he had pushed and tried to lift one of those Bastiladons, that probably would have been a good strategy. He didn't quite have enough movement to get all the way across the board into my territory, and maybe he didn't want to because it would have set them up. Just had all the monsters hit him pretty hard. So he sees the center with his Aggradons. He sends another group of Aggradons over here, and then his Bastiladon onto this objective. Slon and Guard just kind of hold the line here, and then his Hunters stay up in the sky. So let me see what other pictures I've got. So on my turn, let's see, what did I do on my turn? My turn, I think my battle tactic was like charge 2 units or something like that. The fight 2 units. I can't 100% remember. But I take this Bastiladon up here to engage his, and I try to get this shooting one here, but I just don't have the movement to get on it. So I'm forfeiting this objective to him on that turn because he had owned it. But I send in everything else I can into, and I send my Carnosaur too. He makes it into the Aggradons. And so I get all 3 of those monsters into his big unit of buffed Aggradons there in the middle. And between those 3 monsters and then all my shooting into them, I'm able to lift the Aggradons in that first turn. So that was pretty big. I don't think I killed his Aggradon hero. I think his Aggradon hero survived. I did send in my Carnosaur over here into the other Aggradons, but I ended up losing that fight pretty bad. They were able to attack first, and because I was more worried about the stuff in the middle, and the Aggradons put a pretty big hurt on that Carnosaur. I think he survived, but he only had like 2 wounds. And so he was able to stick around enough to hold him down, so that they couldn't get out of there, those other Aggradons, and charge into my middle. But I think I got the double into 2, and so I took it, forfeited the battle tactic, and pushed hard. And at this point, I was able to kill off the hero and charge in my Carnosaur into his guard and kill off his guard and hold down his Aggradons here. I think I was able to do a little bit of damage to the Aggradons. I think I did a lot of shooting into them, and they may have had like 3 Aggradons left or something. So at the bottom of 2 into his turn, he basically had a Slon, his Hunters that were still up in the sky, and then a couple Aggradons. So it was a pretty big swing there in that turn, and I did way more damage than I thought I was going to do. But getting that double turn with all the shooting, all the mortals from the Bastiladons, and then the Carnosaur being able to charge and tag up his back line, I think is really what sealed the deal. All right. Excuse me. On his turn, I think he was able to get his Aggradons that were now loose, but there was only like 2 or 3 of them left down here and take out this Bastiladon, or do quite a bit of damage to him. I can't 100% remember. But, against the monster, they could do pretty good work, and they still charged and did some solid damage there. But at that point, I was able to get my Carnosaur on a... Oh, here's kind of a goofy thing. So I had powered through on the previous turn, and it ended up right over here by his temple. So he had retreated or maybe that's what it was. He had retreated his Slon, but my Carnosaur was still near his temple. So on my turn, I was able to pile in to the Realm Shaper and get within 3 of his Slon, because the Slon couldn't move very fast, so he didn't have a very big retreat out of there. And so because of his temple, my Carnosaur was able to snag the Slon and kill the Slon. So Sometimes that faction terrain is so frustrating, and it can be detrimental to your army. In general, I think he did maybe two to four mortal wounds with his temple the entire game. So is that worth it for losing your hero in this case? I don't know. I wish they would do something about these faction traits. Anyway, so here's, I think, oh, here it was. He's about to pile in on that terrain piece and snag the Slon. Here he had these two Aggradons, and they go down and work on that Bastiladon there. So here's kind of how the game ended. We had I still had quite a bit left. I had lost the Carnosaur, and then I'm able to just pour all my fire into those Aggradons and lift them off the table. So, good game. It was fun, but I think that double turn from 1 to 2 is really kind of what sealed it. When I was able to lift his Aggradons and then get into the Slon, it was over. So, all right. So, how did this list do? You know what? It was a lot of fun. This was a smaller tournament, obviously. But in the 3 games I played, it was a lot of fun. I had thought about, before the actual tournament happened, I had thought about putting in a Troglodon instead of the second Oldblood, but that makes me at least 3 drops. The Troglodon can't take this many monsters, and so I ended up taking like a Troglodon, then I had to swap out one of the shooting ones for the Stegodon Chief so I could bring in another Bastiladon. I felt like it kind of ruined the theme, and so I'm gonna be honest, I didn't really miss the magic in these 3 games. They all had wizards, but it wasn't that big a deal. So it felt pretty good. I would say Incandescent Rectrices did almost nothing. I don't think I ever really healed up my Carnosaur that much because he was kind of playing like a backline, counter charger. So I'm trying to get you stopped up with my Bastiladons and then bring him around the flanks and charge. So he kind of wants to be center, give everybody +2 to move, and then react later. So I think I might change that to something else. Also, I think I should have put one of the solar engines in, or just put all of them into my General's Regiment instead of the Ark of Sotek, because with the what's it called? The season rules for the Honor Guard or whatever it's called. I did the bodyguard for a Bastiladon, and I almost never used it because I was using them as like screens and being aggressive with them. They weren't ever right there with my Carnosaur when I was getting charged. So I think if I had put the special or priority target on a solar engine, it actually might have been useful when they charge in their honor guard unit. Then I can shoot and I'd have +1 to hit and wound because they were generally pretty close to things as the game progressed, and I feel like that might have been useful later on. You have to be within 12. It's only against their specific units, but I think that would have been more useful in this case. So kind of interesting. I was actually able to get quite a few battle tactics throughout this tournament. I think I missed maybe 1 in each game. I'd have to look back. All right, yeah. So I looked it up on my app, and I dropped 1 battle tactic, slay the entourage in game 1. Game 2, I dropped slay the tyrants. That was the only one I dropped there. And then in game 3, I got 4, but that was I double turned, so I didn't have a chance for 1. So I was actually able to score 4 battle tactics in each game, so not too shabby for a full monster list. So, all right, guys, that's it for today. Hope you enjoyed it. What a fun list! Give it a try if you've got 6 Bastiladons. It's a lot of fun. See you guys next time.